I think I laughed probably 10, 12 years ago. I was at the doctor and I had a question for the doctor, and the doctor said, you know, I would have to look that up. I don't really know off the top of my head. And I thought, if my medical doctor can say, I don't know everything and I need a moment to dig deeper and look that up, then I think teachers can do that too. I don't think you have to know absolutely everything in the moment. And I think it's refreshing. I teach high school. I think it's refreshing for a kid to see me say, I don't know that yet. I don't know how to do that yet, but I want to learn. Do you want to learn with me? I just think that's a great modeling of it's okay to not be the expert in everything, and it's okay to get better as you go.
Welcome to Pass the Baton, empowering students in music education. Here, we amplify the voices of music teachers around the world who are passing the baton and creating environments where the music students are empowered. Together, we can help students transform from passive consumers to vibrant creatives. Welcome back to the Pass the Baton podcast. I'm Kathryn Finch.
And I'm Theresa Hoover. Thanks for joining us today. Kathryn, I'm so glad that you brought this guest into our world.
Yes. When I saw Amelia at the Music Ed conference in Wisconsin, I was like, Theresa. I mean, I don't think I even waited till I got home. I think I texted you like while I was there, like, we need to talk to this person.
Yeah. And it was so worthwhile. She talked about a lot of the things that we talk about on the podcast, but just the way that she explained it, what it looks like in her classroom, and also the fact that it didn't happen overnight. I think that's something that's really important for us to remember, is that none of these changes are just like we flip a switch and something's different. Kind of hearing how things progressed in her classroom was really valuable to me.
Yeah, I think too, just I don't have to know anything. And teachers down the hall have really cool ideas that are not even music related. And I can learn from how they are doing things in their class, see how excited my students are in my classroom about those classes, and what's the magic that's going on in there that I can translate into my room.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We, as educators, we can learn from everybody.
Yeah.
It's not going to look the same in an English classroom or a science classroom as a music, but we can take some of those concepts and twist and turn them around to make them fit our teaching context for sure.
Yeah.
So it was a really, really, really good conversation. I know everyone's going to love it. Before we get to today's interview, if you're ready to make powerful shifts towards student-centered teaching, explore the Pass the Baton Coffee Club. Members get an exclusive deeper dive audio extra and a Reflect and Act PDF download after every episode, plus access to our full resource library.
For more personal support, our premium tier offers direct access to Kathryn and Theresa in a private Voxer group. Visit buymeacoffee.com/passthebaton to learn more and join. All right, welcome back, everybody. Today we have the pleasure of talking with Amelia Armstrong. Welcome, Amelia. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be part of your wonderful tradition.
Yep, for sure. I had the pleasure of seeing you, I guess, a couple months ago at a Wisconsin music education conference, and I just loved listening to your session. It was like, oh my goodness, I have to talk to her.
Well, thank you. I was really excited to have great attendance and great feedback from the people that attended that session. And after getting to know you and your book, it seems like the sorts of things that I'm trying to learn to do in my classroom really align with the values of your book and just the things that you find important in education and in, the transformation of education.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, before we get into like the details of what you talked about in the presentation and everything, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background and what you're up to these days in education.
Absolutely. Well, I teach at Platteville High School, which is in Southwest Wisconsin. It's a small rural university community. So our high school only has about 500 students, 9th through 12th grade. This job was my first job out of college. I've been here 22 years. So I started in 2004. And I teach choir, and now I have grown myself into secondary general music as well. When I started, I just had choir. but we've really grown our programs and expanded quite a bit. So currently I am teaching 2 curricular choirs. I teach 2 levels of guitar, beginning and advanced. I started that program in 2016. I previously taught digital audio music production. I started that class with my colleague in 2019. I used to teach an adaptive music course before we did full inclusion in our building. And we have band and orchestra and music theory and all of the things in our department, even though we're very small, because a lot of the students at our school, we have a big hospital in town, are connected to medical families or connected to education families that work at the University of Wisconsin Platteville. And so we act much bigger than we are as a school, as far as the things we are doing. But my career has been very rewarding. When I took this job, I thought I would stay here for 5 to 7 years. This is now year 22. My children are invested in our school system. My sophomore son is in my choirs. My 7th grader is very musical as well. We are here to stay. My husband recently took a job in town. He'd been commuting for many years. So we are invested in this place. One of my favorite things about my job is watching students grow and change over the 4 years of high school. But also, we didn't have a guitar program or a recording studio when I started here. And we've been able to see a need to get more students in the department and have them join just by writing grants and getting training and learning new things. So that's maybe been one of the proudest things of my career, is that my administrators, to their credit, have always said, "You want to do what? How are you going to do that? How are you going to fund it? Do you even know how?" And so it's just been really a great incubator or a laboratory environment for us to grow our music department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get into like the content, I have one more question I have to ask, and I have no idea what you're going to say, so I'm kind of excited. So you said how you started this as a choir director, and that was what you did for the first however many years of your, and then you started teaching guitar, and then you started teaching digital audio. Like, did you have those skills, and was that a passion of yours prior to introducing those courses, or was that something that you kind of had to learn? How did that happen?
So it's a great question. I think one of my favorite things in teaching is that I can learn new things that I know nothing about and explore them and discover them for and with my students. I was a guitarist, but it would have been like my 3rd instrument. So I was a voice major, and then my secondary instrument was piano. I played piano since I was a young child. And I did start taking guitar lessons when I was in middle school. And I played guitar in middle school and high school, but not seriously and not in a dedicated way. I didn't even take my guitar with me to college. I really didn't play it at all. And then in 2015, we started applying for the Best Community for Music Education Award through the NAMM Foundation. And that's a pretty comprehensive survey. It's sort of a data dive for your music program. And when we did that, we found that only 20% of high school students were taking a music course, as opposed to 80% of 8th graders taking a music course. And so we started to say, ooh, what could we do to address that? About 10 years ago was when NAFME and guitar were really starting to grow. And so I took their level 1 teaching guitar workshop and really had an amazing experience. I went to Omaha for a week. They give you everything you need, gear and books, and they sort of teach you how to teach class guitar, which of course is very different than taking individual lessons on the guitar or even teaching yourself the guitar. And so I wrote a bunch of grants, and I got a classroom set of guitars from some local granting agencies, and we started in the fall of 2016. And I learn as I go. I'm definitely a better guitar educator now than I was 10 years ago. But I think you just acknowledge that you can't always be the expert. You can always go and find out more. But 2 summers ago, then I asked permission to add a level because the guitar program has grown enough. And so my district paid for me to take level 2 of the teaching guitar workshop. I did that over Zoom, and that was great. I had to set up a giant guitar studio in my house to be ready for that. So I had a uke, an electric guitar, an acoustic guitar, all kinds of method books, an iPad and a laptop and all of the things. But that was really great too. And again, they just ship you a box of materials from the Guitar Manufacturers Association. So I added a second level, and guitar has just exploded this year. For the first time, I have two sections of beginning guitar, and then my advanced guitar section is almost full for second semester. And most of those students I have never seen before, which is exactly the point. I've
Absolutely.
never met them. I have like 8 senior boys that I've never seen in my life, and I met them on the 3rd of September this year, and they're just really excited about it and doing really well. There are definitely areas where they're better than me at certain things, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I learned fingerstyle before I learned to use a pick, so I have students, especially with pick style things, really fast, like pentatonic solos. But it's great to say like, hey, this isn't my skill of great strength, but like you have a classmate who's really, really good at this. And so yeah, so that's how that grew. Digital audio, we just sort of looked around and said, well, why can't we have a recording studio and a computer lab all our own? So we actually wrote, my former band colleague and I, we wrote $25,000 worth of grants from 3 different organizations.
Wow.
And they actually like rebuilt, like ripped out walls and rebuilt. So we have an engineer's room and then a recording studio. And then we have, a digital music classroom with 24 workstations. And that was a 2-year process. We toured other schools that had recording studios, a public library. We went to a professional recording studio. And again, our district, when we said, hey, on a PD day, when we don't have students, we want to go to Madison and we want to tour these places and design what we want, make a budget, apply for these grants. And again, this wasn't asking our district for a lot of money. It was asking them for their support so that we could do this. And of course, we launched that class the fall of 2019. We got 1 semester under our belt, and then halfway through that second semester. But my former colleague would tell you, we had no idea what we were doing. We were building the plane as we were flying it, but we knew that kids were passionate and excited about it. And we just Googled and YouTubed, and I am great friends with the Apple Logic forum because somebody is in there going, why did they take away, the media zone in GarageBand? Because we really, really need the media zone to drag and drop things when we're sampling, different things. And so yeah, I would say I would not call myself an expert in either of those things now. And I certainly wasn't when I started. But learning to get better at it has been a great joy. And I think it's always wonderful to have that learning mindset and just know that there's nothing under the sun that you can't say, I want to know more about that, and pour your energy into it and figure out how you can know more and acknowledge that, a student might say to you, you're not really good at that, or you don't really know anything about that. And I'm like, you're right. This isn't my area of expertise yet. Tell me what you know about it, or share that with the class. I think I laughed probably 10, 12 years ago. I was at the doctor and I had a question for the doctor, and the doctor said, I would have to look that up. I don't really know off the top of my head. And I thought, if my medical doctor can say, I don't know everything and I need a moment to dig deeper and look that up, then I think teachers can do that too. I don't think you have to know absolutely everything in the moment. And I think it's refreshing. I teach high school. I think it's refreshing for a kid to see me say, I don't know that yet. I don't know how to do that yet, but I want to learn. Do you want to learn with me? I just think that's a great modeling of, it's okay to not be the expert in everything, and it's okay to get better as you go.
Yeah.
I think that's just something we all need to remember, because it's so hard to be like, oh, but it's something new. I don't feel comfortable, but yeah, just open yourself up.
And it is scary. And we YouTube so many things, right? The board, we come in and the mixing board isn't working correctly, and we know it's a routing issue, but we don't know what to route to where. And some blessed, wonderful human has made a tutorial video on how to fix it. And we crawl under the table and pull out all the cables and try again. So yeah.
That's wonderful. That's great.
Well, I feel like you've answered my first question. Because meaning, like, if another way to say all the things that we've been saying is, right, like when I heard your presentation, it was really about becoming the guide on the side and not being the sage on the stage, right? It's okay to not know everything. And it's really like, how powerful is it for everybody involved when you are on the side guiding and saying, I don't know, let's do it together. And I feel like when I've done that with my kids, they have a total there's so much buy-in, because it's like, she needs me because I do know these things, and it just makes this wonderful shift in the music classroom, right? That's just so refreshing to hear. So that was when I sat and listened to you. I was like, oh my goodness, we have to talk to her about the things that are going on in your room, because it's really lovely to hear about.
And it is transformative. And I didn't come to putting effort toward taking myself away as the center of everything and putting students in without some help. You had typed in your questions about choice boards, and I would say that was sort of my first foray into, whoa, it doesn't matter what they do for their assessment, they get to choose. Like, as long as they show learning, they can choose. And I had a couple of English department colleagues, and I happened to just see, because students were in my classroom showing their projects, talking about their projects. And I said, well, what is that? Oh, it's this diorama I built for Romeo and Juliet for our exam. And I said, huh? And they said, oh yeah, like we have to do a multiple choice test, but then we have to read, write, listen, and speak, and we can choose from these categories. So I made a music playlist that has to do with Romeo and Juliet, and I built a diorama that has to do with Romeo and Juliet, and I gave a speech that has to do. And I just looked at it and went, oh my goodness, I have to talk to my colleagues. This is so cool. Does it really matter how you assess it if students can show you their learning? And so I think, right, whenever my colleagues are doing something cool and it trickles into my classroom, and that music students are just, they're social and chatty. And so I just am eavesdropping and going, ooh, show me your art project. Ooh, tell me about that. I just, they're excited about it and they want to tell me. But then I went to the source. I went to those colleagues and said, hey, this is really cool. And I did share a couple of those in my presentation at conference, my colleagues' literal choice boards, and they're tied to the standards and they're just sorted by the standards. But students can choose how they show learning. And there's a rubric, and the rubric is similar for all of the tasks. But I thought, gosh, they were so excited about doing their project for English class. How often do you see kids get so excited about doing their project for English class because they had a say in what they got to do? And so for me, that was an entry point into, does it really matter how they show me they can play G, C, and D7 on the guitar? Like, do I really care how they show me they can do that? No, they need to show me that they can do it. And so I think just the license of, if you want to simplify it, great. If you want to make it harder, great. You asked about differentiation and how that kind of works in assessment. And, guitar is a great example, and I'm in it right now, so it's at the top of my mind. But when we do playing quizzes, I take them one at a time out into the hallway. I've just got a chair and a music stand set up in the hallway, and I tell them, okay, you're in the tank. When you're in the classroom, you're in the waiting room, or you're in the tank, and you are practicing and getting ready. And when you're done, then you're practicing things for tomorrow. But I pull them out one at a time, and they have access to help tools like I can count them off. I can keep a steady beat. If they need me to point to where the changes are in their music. So if they're struggling a little bit and they need some support, they said, that's not cheating. That's using your resources. I'm here to help you keep the beat. I'm here to help you see in the music where things are, right? And some students will say, can you please sing the melody so I know where I am? Or, can you please just help me know, like in my strumming pattern, how many measures that was for each of my strumming patterns? Yeah. Great, I can help you with that, right? But then for my students that need a challenge, that are maybe ahead of the classroom pace, on a playing quiz, they might be like, I can syncopated strum, right? I can, right? Or like, I can go they can go as fast or slow as they want on their playing quiz. I said, it doesn't bother me if you want to go speedy fast. It doesn't bother me if you want to go nice and slow. You have to keep a steady beat. You have to do the changes as indicated in the music. And so that's a great way to differentiate and for them to be comfortable. They can also pick, if I give them like 4 tunes to choose from. Okay, so these are all rhythm guitar tunes that show or that use G, C, D7, which are the changes that I'm assessing for. You can choose from these. If you have another one that's harder and they're flipping way back to the back of the book, and I'm going to do this one, great, wonderful. It just gives them a little say, and they're not like, oh, I'm so bored, this music is so easy, or oh, I'm so overwhelmed, this music is way too hard. And sometimes, if a kid's really struggling, I'll say, you don't have to do repeats. Just play it once through. A kid that's really good will play all 3 verses really, really fast all the way through, and it'll take 75 seconds, right? And again, like it does nothing to diminish what I need to do as a teacher, which is, do you know it yet? Can you show me that you know it, knowledge or skill? If you don't know it yet, what do I do? Or if you already knew it when you show up, what do I do? Right? It does not diminish from those things to allow choice. And I think, like you said, you talked about ownership. I just think when students feel ownership, they're like, what I have to bring to the table is important. She's not the only one that has knowledge. I have something to bring to the table. I have knowledge. I can contribute. And also, because I teach high school, I'm getting them ready. Fly, birdie, fly, right? Like when they leave here, they need to be able to do things independently and on their own. And I really want that. The ultimate goal of a teacher is to not be needed anymore. Right? It's that you can do it on your own without a teacher. Similar to parenting, the ultimate goal is that you don't need me anymore and you can function as an adult. And so I think, when my goal is you play guitar after you're not in this class anymore, and you can do it on your own using internet resources, using your friends, using anything that I gave you, you can play guitar in many different environments and venues after you're done. And so, and I can copy paste that into choral music as well. I do get to see my students for lessons. So as far as differentiation and choice, I'll teach in a 50-minute class period, I'll teach 5 10-minute voice lessons, which is just bananas and it's very fast. But even if they're in the same choir, even if they're all 5 sophomores in the same choir, they will come in and have 5 completely different lessons. I'll hold up 2 pieces of music and say, which of these do you need more help with? And they'll choose. I'll say, do you need to review the Latin or do you want to go all the way through? I will say, ooh, is the middle really hard for you? Let's focus on that. Or they'll say, I'm auditioning for honors. I don't want to do our choir music. Or they'll say, I'm in the musical and I really need help with my solo in the musical. I have students that are auditioning for college right now. They're not doing any school music things at all. We are just working and prepping for them to sing 3 contrasting pieces when they go to their colleges or they go to unified auditions. And so, again, I hear from educators all the time, how do you get to teach voice lessons? I don't understand how you get to do that. I truly could not differentiate the learning without that one-on-one time with students. And I think, at least they tell me they feel valued and important. One of my favorite things about this last session, so the middle of October, late October, when I gave this session at WMEA, I had told my class, hey, I'm doing a session about student-centered learning. And I kind of clicked through the slides and said, there's some greatest hits photos of some of the things that we've done together. And they were, reacting as I did that. But then I said, what are your favorite things when we talk about how I let you do some things? I hand the reins over to you and let you drive the buggy. What are some of your favorite things to do? And it always surprises me. The things that are most important to them are not what I would have guessed or imagined, which I think is so telling as a teacher. Unless you ask them what's important to them, you don't know, or you ask them how they're feeling. They will often say, well, this piece is harder than that piece in choir. And I'm like, really? That wasn't my perception at all. Or we're way closer to memorized on this piece than on that piece. You are? Mrs. Armstrong, we can sing in mixed formation for that one. That's no problem. This one, we have to stand in our sections or we will melt. Okay, well, I wasn't aware of that until you told me. And so I'm just happy that they're invested. They raise their hands and they say, what if we try this? What if we just did this repeat 3 times? What if we jump to here? Actually, could the tenors just double the basses until the tenors come back in? So they've created this environment of like, she's not going to yell at us. She's not going to say, how dare you second guess in my classroom. And so I like to think that I've created the environment where they know that their voice matters and they can raise their hand or they can ask a question or they can say, the altos do not understand page 3. We are not getting it. Can we do that again? So
I think that is the best feeling and such an important thing that we can help students figure out. Like first of all, you were talking about them making choices for an assessment, just knowing how to make an appropriate choice for myself. Right? Just knowing that much, I think, is huge. But then also knowing how to advocate for themselves, knowing how to say what they're struggling with and to be able to hear. I mean, you've made it so that anyone can kind of do error detection, right? It's not just based on your ears and what you're hearing. You have helped them gain those skills. I think about right now I work with, undergraduates, and that's something that we have to help them learn how to do.
Yes.
Because they often haven't had that experience because they've always had somebody else telling them how to fix it and telling them what was wrong and telling them that. And we're getting ready to be a teacher. You now have to have that skill, but your students, they're doing it.
And error detection, I actually used that phrase this year. I think I started using that phrase because I do work with a lot of pre-service teachers because UW Platteville's in town. I had 3 pre-service teachers in my classroom this week. And every Thursday I have pre-service teachers. So I try to, and I also have future teachers in my classes, right? We have a very active Educators Rising chapter at our high school of probably 30 kids that kind of know they might want to go into education. So I try to sometimes talk pedagogically with them. Like, okay, this week I said, do you know what scaffolding is? And they were like, yeah, like when you're building. I'm like, well, when you're teaching, scaffolding is. So I'm kind of explaining this to them. But I said a big thing that's hard to learn when you're a young music educator is error detection. Is like, I know it's not right, but I don't know where it's not right or what is not right. And so a few years back, we started doing sticky note sectionals. This was an example that I gave in the session as well, is, okay, we're going to crash through. Every section has a sticky note. Then you're going to spend 2 minutes in your section and you're going to figure out, like, what are your strongest parts? What are you like, I know this really well. Hey, letter A. Hey, letter D. Great. What are parts where you're like, I don't know this? And is it a pitch? Is it a rhythm? Is it there's 6 measures of rest and you just can't find your entrance note because you're not audiating in between? And again, it holds them accountable. Do I have a list of things for me? Absolutely. And if they totally miss something, if I'm like, tenors, none of you talked about the dotted rhythm on page 13. Oh, yeah. Okay, great, right? Like I have a list. But often our lists are the same. And they value it more when it comes from themselves than if it's just me barking at them. And B, sometimes they're not the same and they miss things that I have on my list, or I think they're getting it and they're really not getting it. And they say, we're just not sure. Or like, do you hear if we're right, Mrs. Aide? Can you tell if we're singing the right note when we come in? Yeah. It's a minor second away from somebody else or whatever. And then also the time to say, why is it hard? So that's another one of my favorite games is this minor second example I just gave. We're singing Ubi Caritas right now, the Duraflay. And there's a lot of sort of do, re, mi happening at the same time, or like mi against fa happening at the same time. Well, why is it hard, altos? This is not a you problem. This is the score is set up to be difficult. Oh, the tenors are singing mi and we're singing fa. Yeah, that's why it's hard. Or the basses are singing ti and the sopranos are singing do. And yes, there's an octave between you, but that's still dissonant. You're singing ti against do. And so why is it hard? Why are we struggling with it? Oh, we want to make that tritone and do a perfect fifth, but it's not. We have to keep it a tritone. So I think just like, why is this hard? Or why are we struggling with this? Oh, it's 2 against 3 rhythmically. Oh, that's why we're struggling with it rhythmically. So anyway, I think it's also fun to watch the difference between kids that have had me for a while and are used to my teaching style and kids that are new to my teaching style. And are just a little like, okay. Last spring, we were in a staff transition and we lost a staff member who had to resign unexpectedly. So I had to teach 7th and 8th grade strings. And I had 30 years ago played the viola for 3 years, but it had been a while. So I was thrust into a situation where I was teaching not in my primary instrument, with students that didn't know me at all. And it was very clear that they were not accustomed to the way that I do things. And they were like, even walking around the classroom in the sections, they were sort of like, oh, she's in my personal space. And they were, I would say, well, talk to me about the dynamic. There's no dynamic indicated on pages 3 and 4. So talk to me about the dynamic. What are your thoughts? And one girl said, wait, you want us to tell you what the dynamic is? And so, okay, so what do you hear in your head? This piece tells a story. There's a dramatic shift here. What does this make you think of? And suddenly there were many, many hands and they were excited to share. But again, I think that I was teaching in a different way than my predecessor had taught. And it was unclear to me at first that was a departure for them and that I needed to give them some space to sort of figure out. She's going to walk around and she's going to ask us what we think. My juniors and seniors are just very used to my zany antics and what I'm going to do. I was making them conduct the chant, the Gregorian chant this week. As I said, how do you conduct Gregorian chant? We have both drum majors in that choir. Do we conduct it like a drum major conducts the marching band? How do we? So I had just 4 kids come down and conduct, and they were like, "Ooh," because how do you conduct Gregorian chant? So we were just having that conversation, and yeah, it's a great environment, and I try my best to get my administrators on board that it feels different than maybe another class that they might observe, and I think, when you're talking about educator effectiveness, I'm on formal evaluation this year. That level 4 teaching is supposedly the students are involved. And I think that was just a good challenge for me. Like, okay, Amelia, can you take yourself out? Like, yes, you have to conduct your choir at a concert, but in the learning process, could you make yourself not the only keeper of the knowledge? Could you do that?
Yeah.
I'm hearing so many different things that are just, spinning in my head as well. And I think your example of going down to teach 7th and 8th grade strings also is a reminder that we have to build the relationships and build the trust to be able to have this two-way. This past week, I was able to, I was the guest clinician for an all-county band, middle school all-county band. And, you get there and there's 92 middle school kids that I've never seen before in my life. And, I'm kind of talking to them a little bit. And I say, okay, great. Now turn to your stand partner and tell them blah, blah, blah. And they all look at me like, she wants me to talk. Like, you would have thought I would have asked them something completely off the wall. But just the fact that I asked them to talk, they were like, I don't know about. And you could just see the apprehension in all of their faces. But over the day and a half, they built the rapport, and then I could get more from them. And we, in those kind of groups, you can't go too far with the voice, but it was still, they were not used to that.
And you will, like you said, you will get that buy-in over time,
Right.
and they will become accustomed to sort of what it is that you're asking for. But turn and tell your neighbor, or even, okay, friends, today we're choosing the order of the concert pieces. That's a big one. That was a good initial thing that was easy. You had asked for just some ideas of what is something that you could do right away. Because again, does it damage the teacher in any way to allow the students choice in that way? No, it makes no difference. Like, might I have a different vision than they do? Sure. Could I assert that vision if I really wanted to? Sure. But the year that they wanted to end the concert with Mozart's Lacrimosa, they were just adamant, and they were unanimous, and they had a reason why. They had a clear vision of how those pieces would progress, because those are my rules. You can put them in any order you want. You must unanimously agree, and you must have a clear vision for why. You must be able to explain in your introductions and to the audience why this is the way it is. And they are so excited, and they very passionately went, we do this every concert cycle. Okay, today's the day. What order? What are we in mixed? Are we in sectional formation? Are we standing in a circle? Are we circling the audience? What do you want that to look like? Because if they can care more then they're invested. It matters to them.
Yeah.
They have ownership. For me, ideally, I don't speak at all during a concert, or maybe after we are done, I will say, go to Culver's and 10% comes to the music boosters. But ideally, it's a student driven concert. That's really what I want. They choose the order of the music. They write the introductions. They speak the introductions. Many of the pieces that we do were chosen the previous year by students, or specific pieces, or like we're doing a whole concert that is focused on body percussion, or just kind of connecting body percussion into music. So each choir has one or two pieces where you have to use your body to create rhythm and percussion. And this year, seniors really wanted that. We really loved that freshman year piece that we did that had body percussion, and we want to do more of that. But the freshmen and sophomores were complaining this week, and I said, this is what your senior leaders wanted. Yes, they're not in the same choir as you, but this is something they were really excited about, really passionate about. It's hard right now because it's new and we're not comfortable yet. But yeah, it's just really, really fun to hear them say, I had a student last year, I went to Hebrew school. My family's half Jewish. I have never sung a Hebrew piece that is not about shalom and peace. And I just want to sing something that is not about piece and says shalom. Could we find a Hebrew piece that's about something else? Yes, I will accept that challenge. Or could we sing in Yiddish? We've sung in Hebrew and we've never sung in Yiddish. Yes, I will accept that challenge. I had a student of Filipino descent who said, my parents speak Tagalog. Could I please teach the choir the language if I found a Filipino composer with a piece that I really, really liked? And again, why would I stand in the way of that personal connection, of that cultural responsiveness? And certainly not me saying, does anybody know? I'm not putting the burden on the student. But when a student says, I'm an expert and I would like to share this, great. I'm not going to stand in your way. Please share with us how you would like to. I will facilitate. I will find music. I will purchase that music. I will get it in front of you. If you would like to be the expert, I'm happy to help you do that. And so again, this all just began with me challenging myself to see if I could try some of these things. We now have projects that are student choice projects, and they are just expected every year. The kids will say to me, when do we get to do the project where we either do music careers, or we do songwriting, or we pitch music for next year? And I'll say, well, I think February we have like a 2-week chunk where we could do that. Okay. Because last year I did music careers and this year I really want to write a song. Great. Or last year I pitched music and we actually got to do this thing that I really wanted to do. And I want to do it again because I want us to sing this for next year. And they're invested in it. They want a say. Even my vocal jazz might be one of the hardest ones, because it's a genre that maybe students don't spend a lot of time listening to on their own without my assistance. So just getting them a playlist or some options and saying, hey, what do you think of this? Or, hey, I found these 3 charts for our ballad, or I found these 3 charts that are samba or bossa nova. Which one do you like the best? And why should we do a certain thing? And they're just a little bit more invested in like, wow, this piece is really hard to learn. But like, no, we really wanted a bossa nova. We really, really like the groove. And yes, it's really hard, but we chose it and we want to do it.
I'm hearing you talk about choice in different ways, and it's, I think, a really important reminder. So in some cases, you're giving, here are 3 to 5 choices to choose from.
Yes.
But in other areas, it's much more open.
Yes.
And I think that's important for us to remember, that there's different times when different things are appropriate. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And, a great example, and this is in my slideshow from my presentation from a month ago. A great example is, okay, we have 4 pieces chosen for our concert, but we really need 5. And I'll say to the kids, what do you think we're missing here? We've got, a French madrigal, and we've got a romantic era German piece, and we've got a contemporary sort of vocal jazz sounding piece, and we've got, what are we missing? Well, we need another accompanied piece, Mrs. Armstrong, for our accompanist to play the piano. We really don't have a ballad. Mrs. A, we have nothing in English. We have 4 other languages. We have nothing in English. And I'll say, okay, well, we're out of money. So it's CPDL or it's something I already own. If you want an accompanied English slow and smooth ballad, may I pull 3 or 4 options and show them to you next week? And then same deal where I will say, we must be unanimous and we cannot rain on someone else's parade. If we don't get our choice, we don't get to be sour grapes about it. And they vote and listen. We'll sing a little bit of each, and they vote and listen and decide. But again, why is this one better? Or they'll say, this one's maybe too hard for us right now, but maybe the next concert. Or this one's really easy, but maybe we could combine with a younger choir and maybe it would be the right fit, even though it's a little simple for us. But sometimes it's choice within a parameter. Sometimes it's, okay, vocal jazz, we have to have a medium swing tune this year. We're not going to go a year without having a medium swing tune. Here are 3 medium swing tunes, and I can, share links, or I can have us read things during summer camp. Here are your options. Which one do you like? What do you want to do this year? So within a parameter, or, when we have the time, my older choir rehearses every day. My younger choir, I see 2 days a week. And so the older choir, we just have the luxury of, we can take a 10 or 15 or 20-minute chunk once a week to deep dive into something. But when they do the music pitching project for the next year, they have the luxury of, okay, you have 3 or 4 class periods where you can deep dive into. I give them some sample websites and some resources and places to look. And you can choose things that you're interested in, and you have to have a diversity of repertoire in your program, and you have to tell us why, and is this the right difficulty for our group? And, I think that's a reflective tool also, getting kids to understand, like, you would sight read this with 90% accuracy. It's not the right difficulty for you. Or this is 8 parts and you are a 16-member freshman, sophomore choir. This is really more upper level, maybe collegiate. This is great. Maybe when we get to be juniors or seniors and our choir has 30 people in it, we could consider doing this. And so, guiding them that way. And, I think, again, I draw the connection to being a parent and being a teacher, because we know those are very blurry sometimes. But I think offering choices makes things more digestible. And sometimes it's, here's the whole wide world and what do you want to do? Or sometimes it's, here's some options. What do you think works best? Of course, would my students ever choose a French madrigal on their own? Would my students ever choose to sight read Bach on their own? Maybe, perhaps. But I think, you have to kind of pick and choose. Or even like, hey, okay, we have a great program here. Are there diverse composers represented? Have we looked at it through that lens? There was a year where we were being trained on diversity, equity, inclusion as a staff. And so we had equity walks. So we had consultants walking through our classrooms and taking a look at, are things diverse and equitable in our classrooms? So some things that they noticed in my room, like, okay, you have pictures of composers on the wall, but they don't seem to be very diverse. Okay, you have Kerwin hand signs on your wall, but they don't really seem to show like multiple skin tones, for example. And so that year, that was an early choice board project where I said, investigate a composer or arranger who is a marginalized person, who comes from a marginalized community. And here are some resources. Here's a database of women and non-binary composers. Here's a database of non-idiomatic music by Black composers. Here's a database of LGBTQ identifying composers, Indigenous composers. What are some voices that we don't hear from enough and we should? Can you go deep dive and find something that interests you or something that connects with you? And then we were able to get a mini grant to print the biographies and photos of these composers and sing some of the music from those composers. And I think just looking at it through different lenses of, I had never done that. I had never really looked at my programming and said, okay, do I have diverse perspectives, diverse voices, diverse? I was always worried about time period or genre or style, and maybe less about composer. And so I think that was good for me to say, okay, if I have to look at that, then I should share with my students that that's something they should be aware of too. And I realized that that isn't a reality depending on where you teach, because I teach in I'm going to call it a maybe more progressive community in a university town. However, I am in a very conservative county and a very conservative part of my state, if that's fair to say, but in a university progressive school. And so, I think I can say and talk about things in my job that maybe somebody even 20 miles down the road couldn't do. And I acknowledge that, and I am aware of that. But I just think students feel so seen if you just say, have you thought about this? Right? I identify as a female teacher. So I will say to my group sometimes, I am fully aware looking at our program that these are all dead white men. And there are wonderful composers who are dead white men, but there are also wonderful composers who are not dead white men, right? And you might need to edit that out because I don't know how PC it is. But I think just the lens of, have you thought about this? Even like, I remember we did a concert once where I was challenging myself to do only living composers.
Yes.
And like, what does that mean for the style of music? Right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, so we don't sing anything classical because all the composers are living. And I looked at my students and said, well, so do you think that no living composers are composing in styles that are historical styles? Because I said, I don't know that that's necessarily true. I don't think every living composer is composing in a contemporary style. I think living composers are using a variety of techniques and historical time periods. And I could write something today that sounds Baroque or medieval. And so it was just an interesting way to reflect and look at things.
You've given us a lot of tips over the last however long we've been talking, but give us one really good, what's something someone could try tomorrow. We find that our listeners just love that one actionable, and it could be something you've already told us, but just what's that one suggestion you would have?
So I love that you can put kids in charge of even the smallest thing, and that the act of putting them in charge gives them investment into what you are doing. One of my favorite examples is the kindergarten line leader. Like when you are the line leader, I remember one of my children saying, I can't miss school that day because I finally get to be the line leader that day. And I cannot be gone for my appointment because it's line leader day. So I think imagining anything in your classroom that wouldn't bother you in any way if it changed, and just letting kids have ownership of that thing. And so like I made myself a little list, like, which song do you get to play on your recorder? Which warm up shall we do today? Which instrument in the section of the band gets to stand up and lead us in our chorale or our scales or our warm up today? I'll even say to students, okay, give me a high do. Somebody just pick a high do. It gives me a sense of like, wow, they're really tired today because their high do was B flat, right? Or wow, they're really energetic today. Their high do was like D sharp or E. Like, wow, they're really, really energetic today. Even like I'll have a lesson plan on the board or on the screen when they come into class, and even something like, I was going to start with this today, but I'm feeling like you have more energy than I perceived. Which of these two pieces shall we begin with today? Even something as easy as that, looking at my lesson plan, or if you had to memorize one piece right now, I teach choir, so we try to memorize some of our music. If you had to memorize one piece right now, which one would you choose? Go, try it. Let's see what happens. Or even how fast are you ready to go on this piece? Here's the tempo that's indicated in the score. Here's the tempo that we've been working at with our metronome. how fast would we like to try it today? Okay. And let a student choose, or let the group say 82. Okay. Try 82 and then crash and burn 74. Okay. Right. Those little bits of ownership. And again, that doesn't inhibit anything the teacher is doing. And if anything, it communicates to you, if they say 58 is the tempo we want to take, you're like, oh, now, is that because you're concerned about eighth notes? That's quite a slow tempo. Tell me more about that. Those little decisions. What do they say? I think I read teachers make, I don't know, 700 decisions a day.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
So many.
And this is why, and as a music educator, constant formative assessment, just constant, right? And and so that's why when you get home, like any decision is just, you have complete decision fatigue, right?
Yeah.
So are there even small decisions, fourth grade general music? Is there a small decision that you could give over to them? And that's one less decision that you as a teacher have to make. And they feel so important. Who gets to play the bass recorder today, or the, the tenor recorder today? Who gets to give student with a wood block keeping the tempo for a warm-up thing that you're doing? Who gets to do that today? Who gets to conduct while we do something today? Any little thing, that's one less decision that you made as a teacher, and you're empowering your students. So I think any small little bit would be just such a boon for your students.
Yeah. And Amelia, I think the thing that I learned from listening to you is you as the teacher take those little things and you learn how to apply them in everything that you do and everything in your instruction. And I just love that you took a choice board, but that was your entry point. You said that was not where I stopped. I took it, I tried it, I saw what happened with it. How can I make that different next time? How can I make that grow? And like, that's just the magic when I listen to you, is like just how you kind of continuously take all that in, and how do I push the envelope in a good way to make a better experience for kids, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And in turn, and I'll connect it back to Theresa as an undergraduate advisor and teacher of undergraduates. I had 3 people in my class this week who were just like, whoa, oh my goodness, right? And I said, okay, so unpack for me. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you're feeling. Well, you didn't tell them the answer. You just let them struggle. And then they had questions. 3 weeks ago, when we started the Duraflay Ubi Caritas, I said nothing. I love to just kind of put them in an uncomfortable situation and like make them ask questions. So I put like the screen of Gregorian chant, neumes and all, up on the screen. And I was like, okay, I have a new warm-up song for us today. Okay, here's our starting pitch. Okay, let's go. And they were like, what? And there were college students in the room, and I said nothing. I did not give any information to my students. I gave nothing to the college students. And I said, well, what's the matter? What's the problem? And the kids were like, is she serious? They were looking at me and they were like, well, that looks like kind of like music, but like not really. We don't really know how to read that. So played the video so they could hear the singing.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so now that you've heard it, okay, do you think you could sing it? Well, maybe. Well, does this mean that? And well, does this, they're looking at, that 1,000-year-old notation. Well, is this like a flat? And is this like a slur? And is this like a tie? And is this like, when it's smeary like that, is that a longer note? Well, that kind of looks open like a half note, or maybe like a whole note, or like longer than a whole note, right? And all of a sudden they are asking questions. Another favorite thing that I love to do. Oh, so anyway, backing up, the college students were like, oh, I see what you did there. You just kind of made them struggle and figure it out, but you made them curious about it. Instead of saying blah, 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 and lecturing them and telling them, you made them struggle, discover, figure it out on their own. I love to say, talk to your neighbor about what you think is happening. Okay, now what do people actually think is happening? But I love to leave them hanging. I said a few weeks ago, okay, homophony and polyphony, we're singing a madrigal that has both. What do those mean? Okay, who knows how we even ended up having choirs that sing in harmony and polyphony? Like, this is something they'll teach you in music history. It's a really, really important thing. How did that happen? Here's our Gregorian chant piece. Here's this madrigal with all of this harmony in various different setups. How did that happen? And one kid was like last year we sang this piece where you said something about this guy and he like convinced the church that they could have harmony and still understand the words. And I was like, whoa. I said that like last October. And they were like, yeah, because the church was like, you can't do that. It will obscure the words. And if people don't understand the words, then you can't have harmony in church. And I was like, okay, so you remembered that from a year ago. That was really, really important. But I also love, like, I remember one day we were doing prayer of the children and I said, who knows anything about the war in Bosnia in the 90s? Does anybody have any knowledge about the war in Bosnia in the 90s? One kid who never says anything about anything is like, I really love history. And here's what I remember. There was like an attack on a group of people and they were like fleeing and da 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 da. And so he had some background knowledge about it. And this is a kid who like didn't really talk to anybody and didn't really ever raise his hand. And the other kids were like astonished. But what if I had just said, here's what I'm going to tell you about da 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 da. And instead, someone smarter than me taught me to say, does anybody already know about this? One more example, because I know I'm very long-winded. Last year, we had a piece, it escapes me, but we had a piece that was an Emily Dickinson poem. I said, does anybody know anything already about Emily Dickinson? And I had 3 seniors who were in AP Lit, and one of them had done a paper on Emily Dickinson. And the other 2 had analyzed other of her poems. And so I said, okay, so tell us what you know. Like, come down here and share what it is that you know. How is it relevant to what we're looking at right now? And then another kid was like, wait, is there like a Netflix show about like the life of Emily Dickinson? Or like maybe? So they're just, they're curious, and I'll leave them hanging all the time. The bell will ring and I'll say, well, I guess we'll have to find out tomorrow what the answer is, because nobody knew. And nobody knew if Belfast was in the Republic of Ireland or Northern Ireland. So I guess we're going to have to find out tomorrow. First thing the next day, a kid walks in and goes, I couldn't stand it. Belfast is in Northern Ireland. I couldn't take it. You left us hanging and you didn't tell us the answer. And I had to look it up for myself, right? Just building that curiosity as the best educational tool that you have is fun. They say that I torture them. They will say that I'm a mean and terrible person because I leave them dangling, or I say, open the piece and tell me 10 things about it. But you didn't tell us. But what? I'll have to tell you tomorrow. Today is just what can you figure out on your own without me. And then tomorrow I'll give you more background. But it's so fun to just poke their curiosity and see what happens. So
it sounds like your classroom is just a blast.
It's pretty
It
fun.
really does.
It's pretty fun.
Well, how can people connect with you and learn more about you and the things you're doing?
Absolutely. Well, I would say reaching out by email is a great way to connect with me. Our school has a website. There's not a lot about me personally on that website, but you can also connect with me and find my profile and my email address through that. I can share my email in the chat. I'm also on Instagram. When I went to Colombia for my Fulbright exchange a few years ago, I basically used Instagram in a professional capacity. So most of my Instagram is not my personal life and my family. Most of my Instagram is my professional life and my career and the things that I do as a music educator. And so I would love to connect with people that way. I'm very involved with the Wisconsin Music Educators Association. That is how I connected with Kathryn and why I'm here. I served on their executive board for 6 years, but I've been off for a couple of years. But I pretty much present at the Wisconsin Music Educators Conference most years in late October. I'm also involved with WCDA, Wisconsin Choral Directors. We are hosting the regional like the Midwest ACDA conference in our state this year in Milwaukee in late February. So I will be at that. I will be performing in that, which is pretty exciting. I sing with a choir in Madison that was chosen to perform. So that's a bucket list cool item that I get to attend and perform at the same conference. So I'll be there to connect with folks. But lots of people reach out to me either through our school website or directly by email. And I do interface with lots of folks, especially when I need, an expert in something, or if I can share with somebody. I've worked a lot with pre-service teachers. I've worked a lot with aspiring educators, or even I've mentored quite a few, like first 5 years of their career educators. And so that's another area of passion for me, is just helping other people learning how to be a music teacher. It takes a long time to feel comfortable and to feel like you are really making a difference with students, and to figure out work-life balance and just how to get things the way you want them to be. So yeah, I'm happy to connect with people however they reach out.
Awesome. We'll make sure we put links to all those things in the show notes so that people can reach out to you. Thank you so much. This has been just an inspiring conversation, and I always get excited because I have ideas that I want to go start using in my classroom. So that's one of the best things about this podcast. So thank you for your time. Thank you for everything you're doing, and we really appreciated it.
Thank you so much. It is an honor. The two of you are obviously just inspirational professionals, and if I ever get the chance to meet you in person, I would just love to do that. I think the laboratory environment of learning from each other is fascinating. Everything that I know is because somebody smarter than me showed me or taught me how to do it. And I just think being around other people who are as excited about trying new things as you are is the best reward. And music education is a great career for that particular joy, learning and collaborating. So thank you for the honor. Thank you for what you do in your profession and your leadership. And I look forward to meeting you and connecting with you again.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. If you have found value in our conversation, please hit that like button, subscribe to our podcast, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us grow our community of passionate music educators.